Since meditation yesterday evening, I feel very much like a pressure cooker, like immense pressure going up and pressing against the throat all the time. It's not new for me, but it's quite, it's right now going to a peak.
Mm-hmm.
And feeling like on
the microphone,
feeling on the throat like energy is trying to find a spot to go through, and it even feels like bones are moved, and my I have swallowing motions when it hits the throat, and it's quite tough right now to concentrate on anything with this high pressure in me. I have two own thoughts on that. That's one is more like thinking like, okay, this is just energy trying to find its way.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's also that there's a reason that it's not letting it through all the way yet, because I also had experience when energy when I did meditations on my own and had quite a pressure on me, and were standing up afterwards and stretching, that energy, trapped energy, went up and hit me unconscious. So the next thing was then that I waked up with my face on the floor and filled with bliss. So halfway good. And so maybe that's the reason that it doesn't let the energy through. It's just a thought I have. Another thought I have is that it's about expression. That it's bothering me that I have difficulties to express myself in a good manner as I feel it. As talking takes a lot of energy for me. But my concentration is poor at the moment, and that also this mental aspects plays a role in it.
Mm-hmm.
My questions would be like, if you have what are your thoughts on that, and if you have any recommendation for me to release a bit of that pressure which is building up so much in me right now.
So this feeling under pressure has a positive side, because that's also in the transformative phases. The process of alchemy is often compared to a cauldron. 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 Cauldron.
It's like a big house.
Yeah, can someone translate that from? So that's a very, very often used term, metaphorically, with reference to the alchemical processes, because that's where that pressure cooking takes place. So this is, it's not just used in a kind of a popular folklore. This is how it is felt. So this pressure has benefits in a sense, because no process is possible without a certain degree of conditions similar to that of the cauldron. And it could be physical, emotional, and psychological. We can be placed in life in a situation where we feel like we are in a cauldron and being cooked. Whatever that situation, whatever that is, work, marriage, relationship, anything that can at that level feel as if we are being tested to the limits. There's pressure being exerted on us. And it's not like, can you release the pressure? Because I cannot be under pressure. No, you can't. That whatever the circumstances are, they're not asking us for release the pressure. Therefore, it feels like a cauldron. But they're in relation to spiritual process, in relation to, let's say, spiritual side of this. This is all beneficial because it's all for the sake of the growth of our soul. We could speak it in this way. With regard to the physiological, of course, process, if this pressure is a result of certain heightened pranic activity, which doesn't necessarily just immediately open everything up, and we feel this state of all pervasiveness, which is carried by a particular quality of prana, right? Are you familiar with the concepts of prana? So that particular quality of prana that is known as vyana, all-pervasive, is not always experienced. So sometimes it feels there is a very restricted area where the pranic activity, and it feels, of course, as being locked. It can be in meditation experienced accompanied by bandha, right? These locks. Yogis do them consciously. They have been observed when they rise in the involuntary processes and been incorporated into the language of the Hatha Yoga. But they can happen, and often happen, in the process of unfolding of the life force, of the Kundalini. Not all of this happens in exact ways as bandhas, let's say, described here and there, right? The most common ones are when the lower apertures are locked and the apertures at the throat level are locked, like literally truncating the body, where the body is like just experienced as a trunk. And this lock here and lock here, you feel like you're not expanding anywhere. It's very localized. But a lot of work is being done, because then prana can go into areas where it can melt and purify this complex network of the subtle pathways without bypassing anything, because it's necessary. There are a lot of subsidiary regions along the main, let's say, stem of the Sushumna and all the main stations. And particularly a lot of work takes place at the third chakra, because this is where the 10 principal nadis spring forth. They split from the main, they come from the area known as that bulb at the solar plexus. And this is where the 10 principal nadis is. This is the most important, the most complex network here. So work needs to be done on so many levels, and this is why many find that this to become a kind of a cornerstone and stumbling block on the path of spiritual unfoldment. Because it's also spoken often as the seat of the limited individual will, a seat of individual sense of self, as that ego in spirituality spoken, in solar plexus. And it's all associated to these very important vital processes. So all these 10 nadis that sprout out from there need to be purified. All of them need to be fit for the fullness of the process. So in a way, if the system is not purified, and have you taken Kundalini course?
No.
It simply would have been easier to speak with reference to that, but we did mention that, right? That one of our exchanges, that what colors the process? What colors the process is the conditions just prior to awakening. These conditions are made of many, many, many different things. And of course, all this together is the state of psychic impressions above all else that colors the process, because that would in turn be the motivational force. You know, for some people, let's say, the motivational force, and we can start enumerating what was the motivational force. You know, like let's say, maybe one of the most beneficial would be pure love for divine, wanting to be, like uniting with the divine. But not many of us can have that. Growing up, being educated in a secular culture, right? So it cannot be taken for granted. It's very, very rare. Then it can be because of certain experience of that, talking about pressure, suffering, discomfort, psychological discomfort that one wants to heal. So in our day and age, a lot of motivational impulses for doing spiritual work actually comes from suffering. Not so much coming from love, you see? See how different that is? One coming from love for the divine, one cannot help. One is overwhelmed with that feeling of that agony of separation, feeling, sense of separation. Versus simply suffering and wants to put an end to it. Simply wants to find way out of it. It can be because of certain desire for power. Also could lead to awakening. Power. Desire to, this more altruistic desire to help, save the world, to become the savior, to become a vehicle of change. Vehicle of help, change. People like Martin Luther King, who went through emancipation in whatever degree, certainly were awakened beings. And the motivational force was that. What drove them was that desire to be of service, to reconcile something in society. And could also be, of course, colored by selfish desires, much less altruistic, let's say, more selfish desires. Some people want to have, because they have heard about these powers that come with awakening, extraordinary capacities. So there's a lot of that, depending on where your birth chart, and if you have a lot of that, maybe it's just to kind of like entering the area of the occult. Also could lead. See, all these are factors that color the process. And these are major factors, but on top of that comes the conditionings, these psychic tendencies. So this is why not everyone, despite the shared structure of our neurophysiology, and that in itself includes the, let's say, rather included into the subtle body, not in all of us the process goes in equal measure, in equal way. A more traditional understanding on this is that one of the best psychological climates for awakening is a state of dispassion. In other words, a being established in detachment. because otherwise there is a great tension that rises from unfulfilled desires. And that, when it is accompanied by desire for awakening, which is also desire in itself and should be acknowledged and spoken of as such, but it has something mixed into it which considered to be not as pure as when awakening simply comes out of, let's say, I don't want anything. I just take me. I want to see the face of God. Just give an example, right? If there is God, if you are there, I want to see you. If you are there, show up. I want to know, right? It's this. There's nothing that because, right? There's nothing that is, because this and that. Because you can heal me, because you can make me whatever, what have you, right? You can make me bigger, better, more. None of that. It comes out of pure humility. In fact, the deal is, remember the deal between Shams and Rumi and how the Shams himself, right? That the only prize is your own head. Are you ready to pay it? Great. The deal is struck. Nothing less will do. So, but in majority of cases, in most of us, that's not the case. So it's hard to even revisit or reverse that into the time when this took place to know for sure how it took place. What was the motivational drive? Maybe if we kept diaries, if we scrupulously and very honestly put down these things, then we can open it up. Oh, wow, that's what was going on. This will actually be very helpful. It will reveal us the state of where we are. Let's say, in your case, 7 years, right? Yeah. In someone's 25 years, right? So it's very difficult to know exactly where you were at that time in terms of not what was happening in your life. You may retrace very clearly what was happening in your life. Exactly where were you living, whom you were with, your nearest connections, relationships, involvements, attachments, and so forth. But are you sure you can retrace the state of your psychological, let's say, status with regard to what? Yeah. I'm not asking that you need to produce that. I'm speaking that for you to simply reflect on this. You see? Reflect on this. It's not that you need to say anything about it. It's actually on the level of simply of that what maybe not known at a conscious level, certainly there as information at other levels. You see? This also in transpersonal psychology is often utilized, is to simply open up certain areas, energy, for it to flow. Not that you need to come up with exactly how it happened, what happened, but simply to allow that area not to be concealed. You actually allow that possibility in any case, everything in retrospect, not to dwell on. This is why I disagree with a lot of that fetishizing on the now. The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle was a great, timely book, but it's a very limited perspective. In fact, it's a very, very beginner's perspective and not at all useful for a much more serious spiritual aspirants. I call it fetishizing, totemizing nowness. You see? And it's been given a critical assessment also that now doesn't exist as now. now only exists in reference to what happened and what yet to happen. So we consciously, kind of like, and this is the whole teaching, and then it's really at some point, you begin to question what is the real understanding here. It's also an invitation to completely forgo more important aspects here, more important intentions, exemplified in, let's say, that favorite of mine, one of the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's sayings, at all times we shall be ready to sacrifice what we are for what we could become. When I first heard that, it literally struck me as a bolt of lightning. It hit me in the heart as an arrow. At all times, we shall be willing or ready to sacrifice what we are for what we could become. It's a total antidote to the power of now. Power of now, accept yourself as you are, that's it. That's it, that's all there is. It's now. There's no yesterday, there's no tomorrow. I have no past. It's all imagination. It doesn't exist. It's not real. And a future is unknown. Yes, of course it's tempting. Yes, it has analogies. That's not the whole deal. Far from it. So this, in fact, the greatest learning is always in retrospect. Greatest learning in the moment doesn't exist. This is where Eckhart totally got it wrong. This, what is experienced in the moment, cannot be savored for what it is, because experience takes over. You see? Every painter knows that, because otherwise painter will never paint. He's fascinated by the rose in the now, that's it. But the whole point is fascinated, and now I'm going to paint it. And how am I going to paint it? Wow. See? Okay, if you're not a painter, what if you're a writer? What if you have a gift of writing? Anything, bring your own example. Use what's closer to you. But don't tell me that I don't have gifts, I'm not creative, because I don't accept that. Everyone is artist. Everyone. As far as I am concerned, everyone is an artist. They just don't admit that. They're still in the cupboard about it. It's walking out of the cupboard. And very often I spoke that there is a connection, relationship between the force that brings the rise of the Kundalini Devi and creative might of self-expression. And it's all carried by the same prana of Udana. Udana is not just for speech, although that's the primary purpose of Udana in everyone. But the Udana prana is the only prana that can take Kundalini up. You can have awakening, what have you, an explosion of 1,000 suns. But if the force of Udana is weak, not going to take you anywhere. This is why people who have might of creativity in them, they rise very quickly, immediately. You see? Because there is this might. Because each time you're creative, each time you feel excited about something, that's the act of creativity. That's Udana prana working. Then there is no impediment in speech. So there is a connection between the weakness in speech, inability to express yourself, being unheard, or inability to listen because it's interconnected. All interconnected. In a normal individual, in the one in whom consciousness is in a state of homeostasis, that so-called dormant state, it moves from the solar plexus to the nasal passages, Udana. This is the principal movement of Udana. But when consciousness is awakens from its chamber, in its chamber. Udana descends down. And the awakened prana is then infused with Udana, and Udana takes over. And it is Udana that takes Kundalini up. No other force takes Kundalini up. So therefore creativity is not something that is like, oh, what, these creative people. These creative people are really like, they're such a, I'm a normal person. Don't ask me this, I'm a normal person. There's no such thing as a normal person. Everyone is walking around like filled with creativity. Extraordinary creativity to tap into. All the time. And the stresses dampens it down. Stresses. Because this also brings the sense of insecurity. I'm unable. Who needs that? What's the point? Discard that language. Buy yourself a block note. Start writing notes. Buy yourself a beautiful pen. Invest. No, don't say anything. No, don't say anything. Don't you dare. Be audacious. Write. Compose. Cross. Write again. Cross out. Write again. Okay, it may not end up in the Windsor Castle next to the great Leonardo drawings. So you don't have to write in by left hand in front of the mirror so others cannot read. So that you can read for yourself. Launch yourself. Initiate yourself today into a great creative being. There's nothing else in this life really other than expressing yourself creatively. What am I doing here actually? Then you will loosen up all this. Yes, you can say, oh, if you now read something here and there, you come across, oh, this page, this wiki page, this by, But what about you? You were a painter, you were painting, and then you stopped painting. I've never stopped being creative. I was creative in my mommy's tummy. In my mommy's tummy. Already creative, sucking fingers creatively. Knowing that I'm going to do something with it. Soon as like any memory that I can reach, the furthest back memory is that trying to do something creative. Even when I kiss a girl first time, I kissed her on a thigh during the siesta break when we were in kindergarten. Because I thought everyone kisses in the face, To me it was an act of rebellion and creativity, And it was dangerous, of course, and it was also, you pay price to being punished. And, okay, I don't paint, right? But it's a painting. It's all painting. You always paint something. Always. So when, let's say, the time will come, and I know it will, when enough people are awakened and they reclaim their essence, then I will go back to paint. I can't wait. I can't wait. In the meantime, this is my picture. And not a day without creative impulse. We can't afford not to be creative. It's our nature, essence. Even write a shopping list creatively. You're gonna go to buy few things, washing up liquid, okay, fabric softener, almond milk, whatever, sunflower seeds, pampers, right, wet wipes. You write them beautifully in a list. So when you open it in a list, in a shop, you feel like it's like you have the notes of an aria. And when you push your trolley there, you don't feel like you're on errands, wasting your time when you can be composing the Die Zauberflöte. It's like you are in the act, creative act. Okay? So you may think I joke. Exactly. I never, it's always like very often, it cannot be trusted. You see? When I laugh, often these are the most serious things. But if I speak about something like this, you think it's not a joke. I mean it. So then, your questions will arise from a different place. You see? So you ask me for, do I have any comments, do I have any suggestions, right? So the danger is now I will stop speaking and you will be like, so where are the suggestions? You're still waiting for suggestions? Sincerely. What, you don't need any suggestions for pen, block note, journal?
I bought some already, but I didn't use, I stopped using it.
Okay, start. We don't separate. Awakening is not just some kind of it's a creative process. Consciousness is here working at a different level. See? Awakening cannot be spoken in kind of mechanics of the process. Tantra is creativity. It's a creative approach to life. And Tantra is the richest, perhaps, of all existing traditions in terms of its expositions, methodologies, and certainly understanding when it comes to the purpose of being alive, role of emotions, feelings, relationships, and self-expression above all else. Nothing comes close to Tantra in terms of depth, insight, elaborateness. So therefore, I would refuse to go on this level of, mechanically speaking about this, this is happening, that's happening. Not dancing enough, that's what's happening. Okay? And when we don't dance enough, we're always tired. To work a little bit, you feel like immediately there's energy moves in the right department. You know what twerking means? Twerking. I can't start showing it to you, but can you translate, please? Twerking. It's a movement, you could say that. So,
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much. I think that was, lightened me up with the creativity, as I knew this was the creativity is a topic for me, as I don't, express myself through creativity, and actually had that on my intention for the day.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So it was very fitting. Thank you.
So just give yourself complete license to go wrong, license for it not to happen the way you want it to happen immediately. Creative process is a messy one. Just throw yourself at the deep end of it and see what happens. See what happens. Chronic fatigue syndrome is also linked to the culture we live in, which is a culture of consumerism. Even if you are not happen to be at that extreme end of what this exemplifies, what it means, what it represents, you can still end up being at the receiving end of its downside. And the downside is that of this culture of consumerism is that really creativity is brought to the level of a very shallow enterprise. You see? Where most of us consume something. And chronic fatigue, in my understanding, and I have witnessed this for many years, going back to the mid-90s, in how it takes over symptomatology, dynamics, the trajectory of it and everything, is also linked to that where we somehow not only adopt, but kind of give in to this, what essentially we should never agree at and under any circumstances that our creativity can be taken away from us because we cannot be creative. We cannot. In fact, do you know that Friedrich Nietzsche wrote his Thus Spoke Zarathustra when he had tumor in his brain? And it's the most light-filled, the most transcendental of all his writing. The most elated, where this concept of the superhuman is taken to its apogee. Yet he was suffering from perhaps most excruciating headaches. And there are many, many examples of how creativity becomes the antithesis of how one feels. So therefore I said, dance. Dance. Or drop dead. No, you don't want that. Therefore dance. Begin in reclaiming this. And you can see that there is something about it. Because I can't tell you go and exercise. Because exercising is not like dancing, isn't it? You need to be already fit to experience that quality of dance like in the exercise. You need to be already very fit. But you don't need to be fit to dance. 95-year-olds dance. Get out in a circle. And you're 40 young, beautiful men, completely like what? You cannot dance? Of course you can. You can dance out that chronic fatigue. Shake it off. Just shake it like a dust. I know it's easier said than done. Of course, if I've never heard what it is, but don't allow pacts being made. Don't allow any pacts. Do not sign any pacts. Rip them. Each time someone slides you this paper, just a little signature, just admit, okay? Don't worry, just admit, okay? Just don't worry, don't need to read this. Rip it apart, throw it out. No pacts. Do not allow this to be incorporated into your sense of individuality. Do not allow this to be incorporated into your, sense of ahamkara. Whatever that is, it's because somatically body communicates something. It communicates that through this discomfort, through that pain, through this illness, through this. It communicates, listen to it. Pay attention, do not ignore the pain. But don't sign the pact. Don't sign the agreement that this is now me, this is part of me, I am that, this is me, this is like This is my life. Because it's not. Something is in transit, something is happening here. Something is happening. Dance it off. And kickstart that block note. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Between dancing and writing. Whew. Yeah, force to reckon with. Yeah.